Hey guys, it's Annabelle. So I wanted to do this video comparing my first miscarriage to my second miscarriage, mainly because my experiences were completely different. I was and am at completely different stages in my life. I am, our relationship, my husband and I, we are in completely different places in our lives right now. And so I wanted to kind of compare the two because every miscarriage is different, every situation is different. So I wanted to kind of talk about the differences that I experienced and kind of where everyone's at with this horrible thing that you hope doesn't happen, but it does happen. So when my husband and I got married, we knew that we wanted to start a family right away. We had already been together for several years. We were actually engaged for 2 years before we got married. And so we knew and had discussed before we got married that we were going to try to start a family right away. So after we got married, we did start trying to conceive right away. And it took us 2 years to get pregnant. And when we found out that we were pregnant, we were so excited. All of the work and all of the doctor's appointments and all of that stuff had finally paid off. We were pregnant. And we were so excited. We told everyone at Christmas time that year. And we were just so very excited. And I was new, obviously, to the whole thing. My first time being pregnant. I was so very excited. Obviously, it was in the back of my mind that there was a chance that something could go wrong and all of that. But all of those thoughts were kind of pushed to the back of my mind because I was so excited to be pregnant, and you never think it's going to happen to you. And so one morning, I woke up and I went to the bathroom and a piece of tissue dropped into the toilet, and I was like, huh. So I checked it out, and it was like a red, it looked like a jellyfish kind of thing. It had like a top part and little like strands coming off of it. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I called my doctor, and they said that I could get in that afternoon and just to rest and take it easy and all of that. And so I went in for my appointment at 1 o'clock that afternoon. And so they checked me out down there, and I had pieces coming out. And so my doctor explained to me that I was probably having a miscarriage, and I completely lost it right there in the office. I was like, oh my gosh, you have to be kidding me. This cannot be happening to us. And so they scheduled an ultrasound, and so we went in for that ultrasound, and that baby measured out at 12 weeks and 3 days. And the ultrasound showed that it was on its way out. So they let me go home, and that evening I started to cramp up, and everything just went really, really fast. And for that miscarriage, I was actually sitting on the toilet. It was very painful, and it was just the most horrible experience. Being my first pregnancy, first miscarriage, I was an emotional wreck. I couldn't believe that it had happened, and we had to then tell everyone. And telling everyone is one of the hardest parts about having a miscarriage, for me personally. Having to tell the story over and over and over again to family, to friends, and then having people come up to you afterwards and telling you congratulations and all of that kind of stuff is very difficult. And where I was at in my life, I blamed myself. I thought I did something wrong. I blamed my husband. He blamed me. Where we were at in our relationship, it was very difficult. I didn't want to be touched. I didn't want to be cuddled. I just was angry at the world. I was mad at myself. I was mad at my husband. I was mad at everyone who got pregnant. I was mad at people who were pregnant. I was mad at people who were trying to conceive. I was mad at the entire world. I was mad at people who already had children. I was just angry, and that is where I was at that point. When we did get the go-ahead to try to conceive again, it was very difficult. I found like intimacy and like romance and all of that just would send me into a very dark place, and all I was thinking about was that I lost my baby. And it was very difficult. When we did conceive our daughter, who is our rainbow baby, I could not be happy about being pregnant. Through the entire pregnancy, I just felt like something was going to happen, that something was going to go wrong, and that why be happy because we're going to lose this baby. And so it was very hard. Even with getting pregnant again, it wasn't this exciting, joyful thing for me. Even through my baby shower, which we were 30 weeks along, I was still putting a smile on my face, just hoping and praying that everything was going to work out. My feelings didn't go away until we had my daughter, and I held her in my arms, and the anger and everything kind of just drifted away slowly. Even when we were trying to conceive my son, I still had these feelings that everything was going to go wrong. But I was more happy with my son's pregnancy. I was able to be happy. I was able to be joyful that we were pregnant and that we were going to have a baby number 2. And it was during that pregnancy that I kind of got over my pain and resentment and everything from having that initial miscarriage. It took me a long time. I had to learn a lot. I had to grow a lot. And when we were trying to conceive, it felt better. When we were planning our baby number 3, and then she was, of course, our surprise, happening like 6 months before we were planning to try to conceive. That was a very joyful experience. That is how it's supposed to be when you find out you're pregnant and you're just happy and everything. It was just fabulous. So my feelings got better and better, and having that initial loss, I was very well aware that stuff can happen. And so that's always in my mind, that something could happen. Even with trying to conceive baby number 4, it was in the back of my mind. And when we did conceive our very first month of trying for baby number 4, it was still in the back of my mind that this was way too easy. And like now, thinking back on it, I am thinking that now. But with my first miscarriage, it was all over within a 24-hour period. And I was young. Even though I was in my mid-20s, I was still very young. I still had lots to learn. And I didn't have any kids at the time of my first miscarriage. So that had a huge difference on everything, because I just kind of sat and stewed in that I didn't have a baby and that I wasn't pregnant anymore and all of that. And this time around, with trying to conceive a baby number 4 and getting pregnant, and with some of the just the things that were kind of different. My uterus being tipped, which they said was not the cause of my miscarriage. Getting pregnant the very first month of trying was amazing. And then going in for our ultrasound and finding out that there was no heartbeat, and again finding out that we were like at 11 weeks. I'm very well aware that, you know, most people are like, oh, you made it to 8 weeks, everything's good. And I am just well aware that that is not the case. In my previous pregnancies with my daughter, my son, and my second daughter, I didn't really feel comfortable until we were like halfway through. I felt more at ease anyways. But like this time, with my miscarriage lasting almost 3 weeks from when the baby's heart stopped beating to when everything actually came out, it was a long process, very long process. But where I'm at in life right now and in my relationship right now, we're at a completely different place. I have grown up. I have learned a whole lot. Having 3 kids, a husband, a house, and a job really made a difference this time. Knowing my body made a real big difference this time. Having had a previous miscarriage made a difference this time. I knew what to expect, just generally, and I knew it was going to be different. I didn't think it was going to be that different. I did not think that it was going to take 18 days. I thought that since I had a previous miscarriage and that since I've had 3 pregnancies, that this miscarriage would just go quickly because my body was used to that. But it didn't go quickly. And it was a lot of time to reflect. And my husband and I supported each other. We didn't blame each other. I didn't blame myself this time. Those thoughts are always there, but they were just like a thought and then they went away. I did not handle my first miscarriage well. If the situations would have been reversed, and if my first miscarriage would have taken weeks, I would not have been able to handle that, and I would have had to have a D&C. I was not emotionally prepared for something like that 6 years and 4 months ago. I would not have been able to do it. But where I'm at now, waiting and knowing my body made a huge difference this time. And knowing myself emotionally, my husband and I are in a completely different place. We know everything about each other, most things, probably 99%. You know, there's always room for growing and changing and all that kind of stuff. But we know each other. And so we know how each other reacts to difficult situations and things like that. And that is huge, very huge. Even though we had been together for several years before we had our first miscarriage, being together for now over a decade makes a big difference. We've seen each other at our worst. We've seen each other at our best. And that helps so much in a situation like this when you go through a loss. And it doesn't matter when the loss is or what kind of loss it is. Every situation is different and the circumstances are different, but it is still a loss, and everyone deals with that differently. And this time around, I felt love and support, and I wanted the closeness and the connection and everything. It was a difficult situation. It was difficult to tell people again, but it was different this time. I'm at a different place emotionally. I have come to terms with this. I am all about trying again here in the next couple months or few months, whenever we decide that we're ready to go at it again. But with with the pain and the difficulty and our ages now, if we were to have another miscarriage, we've pretty much both agreed that we would not try again. So that's a little bit difficult to like make that statement, but it is what would be best for our relationship and best for our family. And we're at the place now where we can actually like kind of make those calls about our life. So anyways, I hope this helps someone out there with situations, because every miscarriage is different. Everyone has their own story, their own circumstances of how things happened. Sometimes it goes smoothly, sometimes it doesn't, and it's just painful all around. But having time to grieve and making sure you know where you're at, asking for help when you need help is so important. And support from people all around you is so important, and it helps so much get you through the hard times in life. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.